and thank you for your time this afternoon. It was launched by the first President Nazarbayev. Over those 12 months since then, we've had a number of achievements in building a fully functional working exchange within 9 months. The first of those was when we became operational with the IPO of Kazatomprom. We mobilised some $75 million of retail investor demand in Kazakhstan. That's more than 3 times the amount raised by any other IPO in the last decade in this country. It's now trading, and the liquidity of Kazatomprom is 3 times what you would expect in any other emerging market. We've also listed Polymetal, cross-listed with London and Moscow. That shows that we have a platform that can connect to other exchanges and that we can attract large, successful businesses which have interests in Kazakhstan to list, and that we can raise a significant amount of capital on a secondary offering. Of course, we're only 1 year old and we've got a lot of work to be done. So this week we're announcing a number of changes in 3 areas in order to accelerate the growth of our market. The first one of those is we need to broaden our product set. We're all aware of the privatisation program, the IPOs that Samruk Kazyna is undertaking to accelerate the development of the capital markets in Kazakhstan. Obviously, that's an important part of what we're trying to do. But more importantly, we've got to broaden the product set. So we announced 3 things that we're doing to broaden that product set. The first is a range of initiatives to support the Belt and Road market, which is a market that we have developed for businesses or investors who want to participate in the Belt and Road initiative. That includes signing a memorandum of understanding with the China Construction Bank and CITIC Securities to help develop the fixed income and RMB liquidity. The second thing is to announce that we have developed a specific rule set for mining companies, in particular junior mining companies. Of course, we're all aware of the potential in the subsoil sector within Kazakhstan, but it needs capital in order to be developed. And we hope that the junior mining rules we've announced will facilitate that flow of capital to that sector. And finally, we announced the launch of trading of an exchange-traded fund in conjunction with ITI. This will provide an investment opportunity for Kazakhs in a product set, exchange-traded funds, which are now the preferred investment opportunity for retail investors around the world. The second thing we're focused on is expanding our distribution, both within Kazakhstan and outside the region. Firstly, we're pleased that Renaissance Capital, and Chris will talk to you shortly, has joined as a trading member. They're a leading frontier and emerging markets investment bank. Secondly, we announced this morning that Kazpost, which has a large retail distribution network in Kazakhstan, will join as a member. And in conjunction with that, we launched a couple of things to grow the retail investor base, including AIX Connect, our mobile application, which we hope over time will become the gateway for investing through AIX. And finally, we need to innovate to be successful. Building a capital market in Kazakhstan in the region is not easy, and we demonstrated that we can innovate with both the depository receipts and shares for Kazatomprom in November 2018, and with the listing of Polymetal. We announced a range of changes or enhancements to our market structure this morning, including a different arrangement for international investors, custody arrangements, and multi-currency settlement for offshore investors that we hope will build liquidity and vibrancy on AIX. Finally, I'd say what we're all about is raising capital for businesses, or helping raise capital for businesses within Kazakhstan and Central Asia. If we can help them raise capital, they'll be able to grow their businesses faster, and that will accelerate economic growth.
Спасибо большое, господин Беннет. Что ж, мы также говорим о том, что у нас сегодня присутствует представитель Renaissance Capital. Это ведущий инвестиционный банк, специализирующийся на пограничных и развивающихся регионах мира и обеспечивающий доступ к 50 рынкам. И сегодня наряду с АО «Казпочта» данный банк становится членом биржи Астана International Exchange. Что дает нам это? Более подробно расскажет господин Кристоф Шарле. Пожалуйста, вам слово.
Well, thank you very much. First, I'd like to say how honored Renaissance Capital and I are to be here today. I want to thank Tim Bennett and the whole team at the Astana International Financial Center and the AIX for the cooperation that we've seen in the last few weeks in making our membership possible. And I want to say how excited we are about the developments of capital markets here in Kazakhstan. Obviously, we're quite encouraged with the macroeconomic conditions in the country, the growth rate and the maintenance of inflation. We're encouraged about the privatization program that is being put in place and being pursued. But the third step, which is incredibly important, is the development of capital markets, which will allow a more efficient use of the savings in the country, which will lead to better management of the state-owned companies, and more importantly, will also provide an exit and an access to capital to both investors already in the country, but also to important investors, the private equity investors that will invest in the startups and the small and medium-sized companies that will then be the future growth of the economy. As the capital markets develop, the private equity investors will see an opportunity to realize their investments and will be more active in the country. So overall, we're very excited about the capital markets development in Kazakhstan and very happy to be here today. Thank you.
Спасибо большое, уважаемые спикеры. Что ж, коллеги, если у вас есть вопросы по теме нашей пресс-конференции, пожалуйста, вы можете их задать. По залу ходят коллеги с микрофонами. Пожалуйста, поднимите ваши руки. Первый вопрос.
Daniel Sirikov, Portal in Business. I would like to have a question to Renaissance Capital and the representatives. Before you were very active in Kazakhstan in this frontier market, and now you're becoming a member of AFC. What will be your possible area of concentration or focus of your interest? Is it going to be mining, subsoil, oil, or maybe junior companies development? What are your major concentration will be on? Thank you.
Well, initially, the first area of concentration will be the companies that are being privatized through the exchange. And we hope that through our membership and our experience across frontier and emerging markets, across all industries, will position us to represent Samruk and the underlying state-owned companies through their privatization and then their ongoing listing. Then what we're very hopeful is, as a result of those privatizations, privately owned companies will follow those companies into the exchange. And so I think we'll be quite actively involved. I wouldn't want to limit ourselves to any industry, but I think we're going to be quite actively involved initially on IPOs and on debt capital markets, helping the companies to raise Eurobonds. And then obviously our contacts across investors internationally that invest in emerging markets and frontier markets that actively already look at Kazakhstan, both on the Eurobond side and on the share side, to get them to become more actively involved here in Nur-Sultan through the Astana International Exchange. So I wouldn't limit it to an industry. I would say that both on the equity capital markets and debt capital markets, we hope to be very active here.
Спасибо большое. Следующий вопрос. Коллеги, пожалуйста, следующий вопрос. Айқын газеті.
Айқын газеті, Халима Бұхарқызы. Менің сұрағым Тим Беннет мырзаға. Осы наурыз айында ол кісі бақ өкілдеріне берген сұхбатында биыл Қазақтелекомның бағалы қағаздары биржаға берілетінін айтқан болатын. Сосын күзге қарай Эйр Астана әуе компаниясы да IPO-ға шығарылатынын айтқан екен. Сосын келесі жылы Қазмұнайгаздың бағалы қағаздары биржаға түсетінін айтып еді. Осыған дайындық жұмыстары қалай жүріп жатыр, сол туралы айтып берсе. Сосын басқа қандай компаниялар алдағы уақытта биржаға бағалы қағаздарын ұсынады?
Так как вопросы вне темы пресс-конференции, мы просим вас как можно кратко прокомментировать.
Look, what I also said in March is, like all IPOs, they're subject to market conditions. So obviously we've had an interesting time in the capital markets globally over the last 6 to 12 months, so clearly that's a factor. But of course, you need to address those questions to Samrok Kazina and the Minister of Finance as to how they're progressing with the plans for those IPOs.
Спасибо. Следующий вопрос. Пожалуйста.
I would like to know what role can the Astana International Financial Center play for the emerging economies in not only Kazakhstan but all of Central Asia?
Look, as I said before, we've built a platform which comprises of technology, regulation and people, which has developed a fully functioning exchange in an international jurisdiction within 12 months. But a lot of that effort has been directed at building what I call the ecosystem. It's brokers like Renaissance Capital, it's talking with fund managers, custodians and all the other participants in the market that make it work. So what we're doing now is engaging with other countries in the Central Asian region to say, look, we've built this, Kazakhstan has made this investment, how can we work with you so you can leverage the investment we've made? Because what will drive success in our marketplace is the depth of the market, number of companies, the breadth of the market, the number of companies, but also the depth, how much trading activity we get. And what happens in markets is, there's an old adage that liquidity breeds liquidity. The more companies you have listed, the more trading you have, the more successful you'll be. So obviously we're quite keen to let other countries in the region use our infrastructure so that they can grow their own capital markets based on that infrastructure, which will be good for us as well.
Спасибо. Еще вопрос, коллеги.
Лаура Монтаева. Казатомпром стала первым эмитентом на бирже. Вот в связи с этим хотелось бы узнать, пользуются ли спросом бумаги данной компании. Спасибо.
So Kazatomprom was listed both in London and on AIX, and it'd be fair to say that the trading activity has been well above our expectations. Typically, turnover velocity in emerging markets is around 20%. That means 1 in 5 shares get traded every year. What we're seeing here, though, is numbers around 50 or 60%. So there's an enormous amount of interest in participating in the Kazatomprom IPO and in their secondary trading activity. As I mentioned during my opening remarks, there was around $75 million of demand from retail investors in Kazakhstan. That was scaled somewhat back by Samrok Kazina, but we've demonstrated that there is interest here in the country for investing in these types of businesses.
Спасибо. Еще вопросы, коллеги? Пожалуйста.
I have a question to Mr. Bennett. You have two pre-IPO entities like Shubarkol and Kazkhrom. Do you think they'll go to IPO in next 2 years? Thank you.
Yeah, look, as I said before, what drives IPOs are a number of different factors, including what we broadly say as market conditions. Obviously, you only want to IPO when the market conditions are right. And that's not so much always about valuation, but the type of investor base you can build. So it's very difficult for even an issuer to determine when's the right time to list in advance. And as an exchange, of course, we're just a platform for listing. We support an issuer, but actually the decision is theirs. So you really need to address those questions to the issuer or indeed Samrok Kazina. What I would say, though, is there is an enormous amount of demand for investing in Kazakhstan. I've spent a good chunk of my time over the last year talking to frontier and emerging market funds. As Chris just said, they like the economic fundamentals of Kazakhstan. They like the investment opportunities through the privatisation program. They see some private sector businesses that they could invest in. they understand the subsoil sector story quite well. So we've got lots of demand from global investors to invest here. The challenge for us and the participants in the market is to ensure that we have a good pipeline of issuance, whether or not that be from the private sector or through the state privatisation program.
Спасибо. Еще.
Здравствуйте, Интерфакс Казахстан. У меня такой вопрос касательно IPO. Есть ли у вас в ближайшее время какие-либо, скажем так, планы, либо уже ведется какая-то работа по размещению, по новым эмитентам, поскольку вот пока на данный момент известно о планах Казахтелекома, ну, в рамках программы приватизации, да, но как бы приватизация Казахтелекома немножко задерживается, уже прошли все сроки. Есть ли информация по IPO Казахтелекома, и если есть какая-то информация о других каких-то новых эмитентах, вот как было в апреле с полиметаллом? Спасибо.
No, look, as I said before, we have no update on the government's privatisation program. As we mentioned earlier, we are working specifically at the moment on two parts of the market. One is the Belt and Road market, which is the opportunity for investors to participate as part of China's Belt and Road Initiative in infrastructure and other projects. And secondly, we've just announced our junior mining rule set. Obviously, in both those areas, we're spending time there because we feel that there is an opportunity to develop a listing pipeline on each of those. In particular, in the junior mining sector, we've had lots of interest. But having been in the exchange business for quite some time, you realise that it takes quite a long time for a company to be interested to raise capital to actually doing an IPO or doing a debt issuance. So I can't really comment except to say, as I said before, we've got strong investor interest, particularly from offshore, and we've had more discussions with companies about listing than I had expected that we would have had 12 months ago.
Спасибо большое. Благодарим наших спикеров за предоставленную информацию. Что ж, господин Беннет более подробно рассказал о тех новшествах, которые были внедрены на бирже AIX, а также господин Шарле рассказал о том, что Renaissance Capital стал торговым членом Astana International Exchange. Что это нам дает? Таким образом, доступ к обширной базе розничных инвесторов по всему Казахстану будет расширен через услуги Казпочты, а доступ к региональным институциональным инвесторам через одну из ведущих независимых инвестиционных компаний на пограничных и развивающихся рынках. Уважаемые коллеги, мы благодарим вас за активное участие, за ваши вопросы. Уважаемые спикеры, спасибо, что уделили время и пришли к нам. На этом мы завершаем нашу пресс-конференцию. Нәріптестер, осымен баспасөз мәслихатымызды аяқтаймыз. Келесі кездескенше аман сау болыңыздар.